estate podcast that keeps you in the mix of everything real estate. Today is going to be a very intimate conversation. We always have our panel, our dream team of real estate experts, but today we're going to be focusing on the law, everything legal real estate. Clink, clink. Right. And we have Nima Ameri, who is the managing partner of Ameri law firm. I like to call him a rock star deal maker. And we have our CEO of Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group, Eric Anderson. All right?
All right, thanks, Noelle.
So we're going to hop right in. Let's talk about the law. Let's start
Wait.
No? What?
At our last podcast,
That's right.
we had a vote from our audience.
Constituents.
That was
to
really
decide
fun.
what Nima was supposed to do with an investment property that he had.
Yep.
So it was either hold or sell. So tell everybody what you did.
It's taken a lot of turns. All right.
Well, do a short recap so our audience knows.
So, okay. Upon leaving, I respected the vote and I terminated the transaction.
Right, but you had this property in Sussex, right?
Okay, so I'll give you guys a recap. Property in Sussex, bought it for $110, in contract to sell it for $321. Couple inspection contingencies that needed to be resolved, and the buyers couldn't get their commitment letter after a couple months, and it was just dragging on. And anyone who watches the show knows that you can't hold the property forever because for us, time is money. Not just the carrying cost, but the usage of that capital in the project should be rolled into other projects, right? So you need money when you need deals. The money's got to be available. So we decided what to do with it. We talked about cap rate, holding it, renting it, the phenomenal numbers and returns we were going to get on just renting the property out, taking a mortgage and letting the rent pay the mortgage and playing with that cash. I don't know if you guys remember the numbers, but Eric had a great recommendation, and everyone basically, the numbers made sense to keep and rent it, but Eric said, no, you dump it because it's a one family, it's far away, and there is non-monetary factors that would make the project not worth it, even on a high cap rate, because of time that would have to go into somewhere so far, which is just the one family. So we took a vote. The vote was flip it, cash out, which is what we did. I terminated the contract at the end of the call, which I know does not sound like whether I should keep or not keep it. Or what was the vote? Was it
No,
sell?
the vote was to hold.
Oh,
I'm
the
just
vote was
gonna
to
let
hold.
you know. So
Sorry, yeah.
we let you guys decide what he was going to do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he's going to do what he's going to do.
Therefore,
But
he canceled the contract.
Yeah, I was wondering, wait, why would I
Right.
cancel it if it was to sell?
He,
Yeah, it wasn't.
he
It was-
held.
yeah, it was the
Right,
hold.
it was the whole.
Yeah, so I
So
killed.
he went against what I recommended, and he did what the audience chose, which was to hold. So he's now holding the property.
No. So I killed the deal.
committed.
But you did kill the deal. It was to kill the
Yeah,
deal.
but
right.
this is very interesting what happens
Okay.
next. The next 48 hours of that killing the deal, very interesting. So I kill the deal, and I email my paperwork over to my mortgage broker, and I say, hey, refi this for me. Something quick, let's get it done. And there's multiple investor loans out there. The easiest and fastest ones are no tax returns, nothing, just bank statement only. The rate's like 1% higher, but they're quick, you're in, you're out. LLCs, you're good. And my agent left it on the market or put it back on for, $50,000 more than I listed it before. Just, I still had a listing agreement with her, so we had to keep running it.
So she raised the price.
That was a joke, everybody. So I got an offer for $330,000, $10,000 more within 24 hours.
Yay.
And that was hard to say no to.
Wait, so our audience just made you 10 grand.
Hold on, not yet.
Okay.
Not
okay,
yet.
okay.
So I signed the contract for the $330,000, and I killed the deal as I left here with the original buyers. Also, I would then have time. I would then have time to deal with some of the contingencies on the inspection that I was giving substantial credits for. So I was giving a $27,000 credit for something that I could have resolved for 10, numerous other things. So I took the new offer and we were hunky-dory. I was going to just ignore. I kept getting emails. All of a sudden, everybody on the other side was becoming nice. And all right. I get from the agent, I get a rider. I'm about to get out of attorney review on this new 330 offer, and I get a letter from the agent. Now, a lot of you agents here are taught that you should send a letter with your offers, or if there's an issue, because the buyer may actually read it and care.
Oh, the sweetheart letter.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't care 99.5% of the time. I wasn't even going to read the email. I was going to delete it. But I was just bored. And damn it, I read it. And I felt so bad after reading it. They had a 2-year-old and I just...
Get to the chase. What happened?
So then I killed the 330 offer. I went back to the 321 offer because I got really sad about that letter. Although I renegotiated that.
Hold on, so the letter is from the people that you terminated. You didn't tell anyone that.
Yeah.
Okay,
the letter's from the people I terminated
okay.
while I was signing the rider for the new guy at 9,000 more.
Okay.
So I went back to them, took out my $27-something thousand credit.
Okay.
So I'm really...
So you went against the audience and you sold it to the people originally for the lower amount of money because of your heart.
I went back and forth, but yeah.
But you know what? I
thank
think
you.
this is like a revelation. You have a really big heart.
No, even investors are suckers. So
I think that's beautiful. It makes me see you with a little halo now.
I'm so upset. I should go cancel that.
Alrighty, well, so now we know that our vote last week didn't mean anything. But anyway.
Oh, it did.
It did.
It actually made me, in theory, I didn't have to give the credit. If I didn't kill the deal that day, they could have gotten me a commitment letter, and I could not have killed the deal. So
Right.
I would have been stuck in that original transaction with the $27,000 credit.
Right.
So really, in reality, because of that vote and me killing the deal,
You took
I
out
was
the
able to
credit.
negotiate a far better deal for myself
Okay.
from them, which I didn't even need because I got $10,000 more from somebody else.
Alright, well, congratulations.
Bottom line, I made money listening to you voters.
That's your good deal for the new year.
Yay!
Well, I got 3 more I just lined up from it.
Alright, well, we don't want to hear about those. So let's talk legal.
We're gonna do legal. So you want to start with horror stories?
I'll give you a legal horror story.
Probably call a real lawyer. I'm kidding.
I'll give you a legal horror story. So, you have to remember that when you're dealing with so as a licensed real estate agent, we're expected to have a higher standard than the public. So we have to be careful what we say, what we imply. So one day, this is like 15 years ago or 20 years ago when I was first learning the industry, I had a 2-family house. Or I should say I had a house that was in a 2-family zone in Garfield on River Road. So when I took the opportunity, I put the listing out, the house was in his 2-family zone. The house itself was not a 2-family, it was used as a single family, but it had 2 kitchens, it had a divided entryway, and it was visibly convertible to a 2-family. So when I put in the remarks regarding the property, I put in property could be easily converted to a 2-family. The house sold, the people bought it. During that listing term frame and during the closing, the zoning in the town changed.
Ooh. Audible.
Okay, so the zoning, which I had no idea, and then they were represented by someone else, and they had no idea. So it ended up closing, and then 2 years later, these people decided to change it and convert it into a 2-family, and they sued me for putting in the remarks, house could easily be converted into a 2-family. Now, what I meant in those remarks was structurally, based on the way everything looked and based on the floor plan, it could be easily converted. My comments were not there to, by at any means, implicate that it was easy in the town. I just knew it was a 2-family zone. I knew that the house, based on my construction knowledge, I knew that the house could be converted easily. So they sued me.
For how much?
I don't recall because we have, as brokers, we have errors and omissions insurance. So my errors and omission policy kicked in. It was like it took a year to go through BS back and forth. They ended up losing. I still had to pay my $5,000 deductible.
Yeah.
But so point of the matter is, you have to be careful with what you say to people. So had I put in there house, the floor plan of the house could easily be converted into a 2-family, but please check with the town to make sure that's an applicable zoning. then they couldn't have sued me. It's because of the words that I put in and that it was ambiguous that they used that to hold their hat on. Obviously, they didn't win because it was such a thin case. But what that did is it led me to learn down the road that everything that I say needs to have a disclaimer. So even if let's say you're a mold remediation, your father's a mold remediation expert, but you're not. But you know what to look for in mold remediation. If you're in a property and you're, let's say, showing someone something, you have to say, well, based on my knowledge from my dad being a mold remediation specialist, you should do this, this, and this, and this. However, I'm not licensed in that, and if you want a real opinion, you need to go to a real licensed person. Right. So you'll learn that, but that just led me to be much more cautious and always put a disclaimer on everything. So what are your legal comments on that?
I may have won the case.
How?
So I would have argued, first off, you're right. And I teach a class on a podcast for a school, and it's the Center for Real Estate Education, New Jersey. And one of the things that we talk about in that podcast is, I don't teach it, I'm just a lecturer, but one of the things we talk about is how agents, what you write, not just what you write, but what you say verbally or how you represent things carry significant legal consequences. I would actually agree with the story. I would have just ended it with something like subject to your own due diligence, right? I would probably end everything.
Can you put subject to your own due diligence for everything?
I would probably, honestly, thinking about your story, I'm surprised that the MLS listings, that you put that in the comment section, doesn't have a caveat built in on the bottom that says the above are...
Well, it does say everything is... there is a caveat on the bottom of everything.
But it protects the MLS.
That says subject to your own independent... There is a sentence on everything in the MLS.
I think the person ultimately who would have been most... so wording matters, right? I would definitely write subject to your due diligence on anytime you recommend something for future usage, you should always write subject to buyer's due diligence. Okay. Just those words. The above is subject to buyer's own due diligence.
Now, do you guys hear that? You should be writing notes on that one. These are things that you're going to, that everyone who's a real estate agent is going to use. So if you're a real estate agent out there, becoming a real estate agent, thinking about becoming a real estate agent, listen to this guy.
Hold on, does that apply if I'm not a licensed real estate agent and I was advertising on Craigslist and I could easily be converted to a 2-family house? Would I be subject to the same as a licensed real estate agent?
No, I think you could still get sued because it's America and everybody can get sued. But I think that as a real estate agent, you have more of an obligation. You have a licensed obligation to people because what you say carries more weight and meaning because they're relying on you. So I would say that it carries a lot more significance, especially if it's printed, right? I would say the biggest thing is not even that, because a lot of people, review what's sent. I, as the seller, would have been more concerned. So when I flip a property, I make the agent send me the MLS listing so I can read it. And
really?
Every time. And the reason I do that is if something is written there or not disclosed properly, right, I can get sued as the seller. So the seller could have been sued because really that's not your description. That's the seller's description. So that would really be the seller's problem too. And it would also have been the attorney's problem for the buyer because the attorney should have done the due diligence. I would guess 99% of lawyers do not read the actual MLS listing. Why? Because it's usually not sent with the package to the lawyer. But the lawyer should be reading it because it says bathrooms, bedrooms. It has the disclosure information. And you have to confirm that that information is what's reflected in the contract and what your client is purchasing. So the lawyer's job isn't just to do a contract and get out of AR with a template and then call me at closing. Like really what their job is, and that's why there's a lot of malpractice lawsuits in the field of real estate. The lawyers really, their job is to protect you as the buyer, right? To make sure that there's no open permits, tell you to go do an Oprah request to make sure that there's no open permits or work done without a permit. But most people don't do that. So if you're in the mix and you don't...
Who's supposed to do those things? The buyer or the buyer's agent?
So in theory, the buyer. Buyers agents do it because if you're a good agent, you just do that for your buyer, especially if it's an investor or repeat buyer, right? The issue though isn't if you're the buyer, the questions come, or it's important when, the buyer themselves needs to know it. So let the buyer's agent, don't rely on your agent. If you're a buyer, be smart, don't rely on other people, right? Especially if you're in the real estate game, you can't be passive unless you have that much money. You have to be active, right?
That applies to everything. You can't rely on your mortgage broker. You can't rely on your banker. You have to read all the documents because they can put the wrong page in there, and you're liable for whatever you signed.
But that's just so hard.
But you know what?
It's so hard because you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know what you don't know.
We send a welcome email to every client, and in it says very clearly, you should do an Oprah request. You should do this. You should do that. Right out the gate, we send that. Now, if the agent doesn't do it, they should have read our welcome email. They know to do it. We advise them to do it because at the end of the day, the only way to know is you do an Oprah request, and you'll see where there are permits that weren't closed. Because guys, you can get a CO and there's still not closed permits in a lot of towns. Some towns don't even require COs. Now, if you're excuse me, if you're in that context, right, from the legal aspect of the transaction. A lot of times too, now writers say, when you close, everything kind of forecloses with it. So you can't bring up claims, right? You as a buyer have to do your due diligence during the period of time you're buying that property. In your case, that buyer should have actually gone and looked. If that was his intention to buy that property for two-family usage, well, there's an inspection provision. There's a due diligence period, right? I'd have said, well, why didn't you do your own due diligence on it? You're the buyer.
Well, that's probably why he won, right?
Also, it's very
it was a week, guys.
Yeah.
Amanda says, I wish lawyers were required in New Jersey. This is great info. I wish I'd known this when I purchased. Now, I know in northern New Jersey, you always go into attorney review.
So it depends on the area. So southern Jersey, they use title insurance companies to close deals. Northern New Jersey, we use lawyers. I personally would never do a closing without a lawyer. I guess I was just brought up that way. I don't really know the reasoning.
So North Jersey, there is no legal requirement to use a lawyer. The only time you have to have a lawyer is if you're in court and you're a corporation.
So wait, attorney review is not required?
No. Attorney review is, and it's not on everything. It's just on real estate contracts. I love the concept of it because it's not in every state. You can do the attorney review yourself. And it's what's customary in your area, and Eric is right. South Jersey does not use lawyers; they use title companies, which is, to me, really dumb. Right? Lawyers, real estate lawyers, are not expensive. They're
like $1,000 to $1,500. So you're putting your whole large, hundreds of thousands of dollars of transaction money at risk to save $1,000. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and guys, if I were you, don't go to a real estate lawyer who is just a real estate lawyer because, like, in my opinion, those are not the best people to talk to because while they're good, they're overwhelmed. They're really, really busy because they're volume business. And just if you do go to them, make sure you're not dealing with a paralegal the entire time, right? You want to know that you're talking to your lawyer. That, to me, being foisted onto a paralegal, and no offense to paralegals out there, I really rely on mine. They keep this entire profession together. But you need to communicate with your actual lawyer because you don't want to be pushing through papers and documents that are form or template. You want to know, has this been read? Have my concerns been met? Have you reviewed your rider? Do you know what the terms in it mean? Do you know what you're waiving? Legal's more important now, guys, than ever because it is a seller's market, right? Yeah. When it's a buyer's market, you have control, you have flex, you can call the deal. When it is a seller's market, the sellers are emboldened. Take it as it is, just deal with it, right?
I was about to purchase a house and I went into attorney review, right? And I have to say, I am so happy that my lawyer was like, you cannot sign this. He pointed out all of these different things that the seller had pulled out of the contract that were for my protection as a buyer. And that, if I didn't meet certain appraisals, he wanted to pick my lender, like things that our lawyer was like, no, you cannot do this.
First off, I'm not crediting your lawyer, I'm crediting you.
Why?
Because
I'll credit me too, but go ahead.
I'll tell you why. We have so many deals where we tell our clients, this is bad, don't do it, right? And honestly, sometimes we get fired by the client.
Because
they want to do the deal.
They want the house.
I'll give you a horror story.
Okay.
We had a client who was referred to us from one of my largest clients. I consider him like a brother, family friend. He puts an offer on a house from an agent that I believe, in my opinion, is not working to the best interest of his clients, that group. And that's my personal opinion. I'm not trying to disparage anybody. I just don't trust him. Because they want to close.
We'll
and they
run
want
a
to
disclaimer across the bottom.
Yeah. Well, by saying that occurred in a case I cannot be sued for defamation. In this deal, it was as is, all the nonsense you see in today's deal. Guys, don't buy an as is property. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with you? Why are you signing a contract that's as is? You can't get out of it unless you have a mortgage contingency, which now people know most of these cancellations are untrue and they don't let you cancel under mortgage provisions either. I had one and I said, send me over your application, all your paperwork, and prove you actually closed, you actually applied for the right mortgage. Next thing you know, crickets. Or I emailed the mortgage broker myself and I'm like, did this guy actually get canceled or did you send a cancellation letter? Dude, your mortgage broker's not gonna lie for you. He's not gonna lose his license.
Right.
So anyway.
Hold on. There are deals out there that are worth buying as is, and there are tons of lawyers out there that we call deal killers. So while all of your points are well taken,
Eric's right. I have 2 deals contracts I signed this week as is.
It depends on your knowledge and your expertise
and the price.
There's a lot of mitigating factors. If you bought 400 properties, you can certainly know well enough whether you can buy something as is.
100% right. I take it back. If you're a first-time home buyer looking for a home for yourself and you are paying market or above market, in that limited scenario, I would not recommend buying an as-is deal solely in that limited scenario. If you're a first-time home buyer, it's a residence you want to live in, and you know you're paying above market.
Okay.
Yes, but also know that if you don't sign the deal as is, you may lose the property. So
Sure.
You have to understand both sides of it, and you're giving the right advice. But if this is like this property you've been waiting for 50 years, and it comes on the market, and this is your one and only chance to grab this house, and
would you still buy it even if you knew it wasn't worth it? What if you know
you have to look at the big picture and make those decisions.
Well, not only that, when you're buying a house, and I know just from the experience that I'm going through now, when you're buying a house, you sort of get attached to things. You get attached to the dream of what's going to happen, which is probably why it's hard to work with buyers.
But that's why he's there to protect you from that, which is great. But just like you get attached to being married, and then you can get unattached to being married. Right?
That happened too to me. But
you can quickly get over.
Eric's looking for some trouble right now.
No, but you can quickly get over that house. So like, if
half Eric's building is going to be up for sale in 1 hour.
No, if he proves to you why you shouldn't buy that house, like even though Noelle was saying she's attached to it, she'll find another house to get attached to.
And that's
it's
what
just
he told me.
depending on like if it's real serious, like. If my wife says I have to have that house under all circumstances, you just make the decision and you just do it. It depends on what the mitigating scenario is.
No, but that's what the lawyer told me. He was like, there are other houses, this isn't worth it.
Which is hard to get, but.
Yeah, so to the point of the story, we entered a contract and I sat with him. And I had that conversation Eric just did. I said, look, this is what it means. Do you really want this house? And are you prepared that as an as-is transaction, what you're buying is you're okay with it, whatever repairs is going to be out of your pocket in the future. Are you okay with that scenario? And he said, no, right? So you had the conversation. You're right. You explained to him, can you live with it? For the most part, we were willing to go okay with as is because he told me he really likes it and wants to get the deal done. So what stood out to me was a completely random carve out. It said the chimney is as is, no inspections permitted.
Well, that's a red flag. That's a ding, 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 ding,
right?
ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
So I said, look, the house is as is. We'll take it as is. But we should be permitted at the very least to inspect the chimney and understand what we're getting into.
Right.
And I'm even happy to put financial limitations if there's an issue with the chimney that, it has to be major if we want to cancel the contract. But how can you tell me I can't inspect something
that I'm about to buy and live with?
And it's a chimney. Guys, if a chimney's bad, first off, it's really expensive to fix because chimney guys are. And second,
are there still chimney guys? Chimney sweeps.
Mary Poppins style.
Yeah, Mary Poppins.
Second, guys, chimneys can, if they're bad and you don't have proper flow, that carbon monoxide comes back in your house.
That's
That's
deadly.
Dangerous. Then they have a young baby. So I sat down with them and I said, look, at the very minimum, do the as is. Ask them if you can do the inspection before you even sign the contract. It takes 1 day. They refused. We were super, super hospitable. I put my foot down with my client.
They're still alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Carbon dioxide came back in. I just want to make sure.
But their argument was, well, we never used the chimney. It just, if you never used it, let us inspect it. So weird. And very seldomly do I see a specific carve out that says, it's like, you go somewhere and they're like, hey guys, don't open that door. You can check everything else, but don't open that door. You're going to be like, what's behind that door?
Right.
Super red flag.
So the deal was going to die. I advised my client, what do you want to do? And this is how it turned out. My client, after speaking to us, was like, you guys are right. I see your point. And I didn't tell him what to do. I said, look, the choice is yours. Mm-hmm. You can do this, but here's the average cost to repair a chimney. If there's a problem with it, there's a carbon monoxide. Make the right decision, right? Do you love this house? If not, you're paying above market. This house has actually been on the market a couple times. So clearly,
because of the chimney.
There's a flag, right? And I was like, and second, there's other properties out there too. You're not in a rush. He's like, you know what? I want to do it. So we responded back and said, okay, look, we'll take it. The other side said, we're not going to accept that unless you fire your lawyer.
I don't blame them.
For pushing a chimney? So he came to us and I said, listen, brother, it's not personal. Didn't even charge him. Like I said.
Wow. Referral. So they were like, we won't let you move forward with this lawyer, even though you were almost out of attorney review. And
I don't know if it was the actual agent. I think it was more his agent pushing because his agent saw us as an obstacle to him getting to closing. I think it might have been him.
Wow.
Right? But at the end of the day, and look, he wanted the house, so he relieved us as his attorney. Very friendly manner. We both talked and we're like, look, I want you to have the house. I don't care about the deal. I was like, if that's one of their terms, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And look, we're always here for you.
Another huge red flag.
But guys, be smart, right? What you did, you listened to your lawyer, you absorbed it and made an educated decision. If someone tells you, get rid of the person whose sole job is there to protect you, it's like, imagine you've got a bodyguard and you're going into a dangerous situation and they're like, whoa, you cannot enter this dangerous situation unless you get rid of that really good bodyguard.
So what I would have done is I would have hired another attorney, kept you on retainer, but kept you as the behind-the-scenes attorney, had my other attorney be the front man and run everything past you.
Is that legal?
Yeah, you can have 10 attorneys, but for a real estate transaction, and honestly, we didn't want to be a part of the deal anymore either ourselves. Like, it's a simple deal. We don't really make money off these one-family houses, and as you see, there's a ton of legal liabilities, even for lawyers. You have to give each of these files the attention it deserves, and a lot of people, I think, don't, in my opinion. But arguably, if there's so much to it, and in this market, guys, protect yourselves and don't just sign contracts thinking, I really want this house. Like, to me, I think that people shouldn't be impulsive. Don't be scared to lose a deal.
Well, for us, that was the best thing we ever could have done. The other red flag for us was that the person sent back their edits or whatever at something like 10 a.m. when we were on our way to the Outer Banks and like we were about to go someplace and said that we had to have a response in an hour.
That's unreasonable.
And at that point, our lawyer was also like, but we don't, you don't even have time to digest what this person is saying and digest my information. It was the best thing we ever did getting out of that deal. And thank God for attorney review, because if we hadn't had attorney review, then we would have just moved around like, we're getting a house.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Guys, I had a nightmare legal story where we sued on it. Have I talked about that one?
I don't know.
Against the sellers. So you
sued them.
Yeah, I did not represent the buyer. What happened was my client bought this house in Bergen County, nice area, and the sellers had decided the guy I wanted to get into real estate flipping, and he considered himself a designer, an artist, and he did all these modifications to the home himself. My client hired a home inspector that was recommended by his attorney and went forward with this transaction, found an attorney. Closes, arguably should be his dream home. There was some issues that came up in inspection, like water accumulating in the back, things like that.
Because the guy fixed it with YouTube, right?
Yeah. He let those go. When he moved into his dream house, which is an over $1 million home, it was a nightmare. Roof was shot, water was leaking, stucco was put on wrong. Everything that guy did as an artistic design was not structurally sound. There was a spa room in the basement he put in. And guys, if you're going into a house and there's a body of water and there's no filtration system for the air to circulate, I mean, water, no filtration will lead to a problem, right?
Yeah.
Home inspectors are not obligated to go on top of your roof and check, right? These are things that they're not obligated to do. And most good home inspectors have in the bottom of each of the reports disclaimers that prohibit you from suing. So just because you get an inspection report, don't be like, this is gold and I can rely on this. You have to read it and figure it out. And if you don't know much about construction, go talk to a friend or someone who does and say, hey, what do you think of this? Because luckily, this home inspector was doing this part-time, had no disclaimers, and we basically sued everyone. We sued the homeowner. We got a judgment against him for $200,000.
Wow.
We sued the home inspector. We settled for a sum.
Now, why did you win though? Because shouldn't it have been on the buyer to be get the inspections and find out if it was all good?
Correct. So the Latin phrase is caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware.
Mm-hmm.
I probably could have sued the lawyer too for not requesting that he does Oprah checks and looking into it. I didn't though. But ultimately, I won because he did do these things, and the inspector missed some really big things that he should have caught. Right? He took the age of the roof based off of what the seller told him. He misidentified the stucco on the outside and didn't tell him, hey, you should do a humidity test behind the stucco to see if there has been penetration and water and humidity has been building up behind the stucco. Guys, in the early 2000s, people used styrofoam stucco because it's cheaper. And styrofoam stucco, if it fails, which it usually, in my opinion, does, humidity gets in between. There's nothing to pull that humidity out. Starts rotting the wood behind it, creating mold. It's a nightmare. So these are all things that he didn't do, and he didn't advise him to do. So we sued him, and we sued the sellers for.
So how did you win against the seller?
Seller didn't disclose, did work without permits, and didn't disclose any of this. Guys, you don't just get away with it once you sell.
Was there a seller's disclosure?
Yeah, none of this information was on
there. So there was a seller's disclosure.
Correct.
So the seller actually filled out a piece of paper that said, this is what I did and what I didn't do. So that gave you a basis to sue. If you didn't have a seller's disclosure, would you have won against the seller?
Yeah. Still, look, there's common law requires you to disclose latent defects. If there's a defect in your property that you are aware of, you have an obligation to disclose it. Even if it's not in the seller's disclosure and you're aware of this latent defect, I believe you have a legal obligation to disclose that to your buyer.
What if you don't know?
Yeah.
Then it's different. You don't know.
So you had to, how did you prove that the seller knew that he had these issues?
Because they were patched and remediated. So the water filtration issue clearly was an existing one from the roof because there were patches repairing water damage.
So if you repaired it, then you knew that was a problem.
Exactly.
Got it.
And you knew you built a pond in the house without a permit, So the guy was great with his artistic design, but,
So everyone who's watching is either interested in real estate or is a real estate agent. I mean, this is everything real estate. Tell me what are the top things you should be looking for from a lawyer when you're hiring them?
I think the number one thing is to explain, right? Guys, they know from experience, they know from doing things right and wrong, and they went to law school. So you want your lawyer to spend time with you, pick up the phone, ask him. Don't be like, oh, I'm afraid to ask questions. Ask things, right? No question is too stupid. Just ask. If you don't know, ask, and they'll explain it to you. And if you're not happy with the answer, or you're not confident or comfortable with the answer that they've provided, switch lawyers. It's never too late. You can always switch attorneys, right? But ask questions. Find a lawyer who's willing to give you the time to explain.
Yeah.
Find a lawyer who.
So patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You want the lawyer to be patient.
Right. And don't rush. Don't let your emotions dictate your decisions. Let your logic and your brain dictate those decisions.
Top 10 attorney characteristics. Patience.
Okay, I'd say patience. This sounds horrible. I would say appearance.
Appearance.
Right?
Yes. Why?
And again, this is horrible. I'm not saying go hire models. But if your attorney can't spend the time in the morning to take care of himself and get himself in order, how is he going to get you in order and your things in order?
So you just mean well kept or organized.
Correct.
Okay.
So they don't have to be beautiful or
No,
handsome.
no. And don't expect his desk. No attorney's desk is clean. If it is, and he has no work. Just look to see in general as he put together, is he sharp? Is he on point? Right?
He or she.
He or she, yes. Pronouns or anything, yeah.
Yes.
They. Yes, they. And make sure that they're attentive. If you're talking to them and they're in another world, well, that's an issue, right? Make sure they're giving you the attention you require. And I think that's really important.
Patience, well kept, answering questions.
Ability to communicate. You need to have the ability to communicate with them. I would look for an attorney who's willing to give you a cell phone number. My staff, like my paralegals, the ones that deal with clients and my associates, all have work cell phones.
Okay.
I require it because that way, look, most of the time when you call the office, you're in queue, right? There's phone calls. Phone calls take more time.
Yeah.
But with the work cell phones, you can shoot a quick text and they can respond quickly via text. We use an online case management platform that allows people to send messages through. So we create different avenues of communication. Because it's not always easy to get in touch with your lawyer, because remember, you're not his only client and other people are as well. And in addition to that, he actually has to do legal work as opposed to fielding calls. So somewhere in between, he has to block out the ability to get calls so he can get his work done.
Well, what do you look for in your deals? What are you looking for from a lawyer?
I'm still listening to his 10.
Okay.
I think that's kind of it. I don't know, shoes?
Shoes? My mom used to say that about men. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me know.
I'm just throwing that out there. Honestly, that's really it. That's what you're looking for in a lawyer, right? The rest of this stuff really is immaterial. Sure, what school he went to is great,
Right.
but in reality, what does it matter, right?
Okay.
If they're smart and they're good, even if they're only out for a year or two, they could be better than a lawyer for 30 years. I think people who look for someone who's like, oh, this guy's been a lawyer for 20 years, he's better. Sorry. I don't think that's accurate. I think a guy who's been a lawyer for 20 years is tired. I think you're going to get more work out of someone who's...
So my big thing for a lawyer is making sure that they're willing to understand and talk through your issue. So not just tell you what they want to tell you or tell you what they think you need to hear, but talk through it. Because sometimes I would have an idea and I need help formulating what I really want. Mm-hmm. So being able to talk through and have the banter back and forth without being judged or without being told no. And then once we have that conversation, the ability to agree on a way to move forward. And if we agree on a way to move forward, don't yes me and then do what you want. Do what I want. Because I'm hiring that lawyer to do what I want. So like with the chimney that he mentioned before, if I say buy the house without the chimney, I want to buy the house without the chimney. I don't want you behind the scenes making alternative agendas, which you're probably trying to protect me for, and I get that. But sometimes I don't want to be protected. Sometimes I want to do what I want. Mm-hmm. And there are lawyers out there that won't do that.
There's a lot of lawyers out there who will do that. Are you kidding me? I'd say most lawyers out there. A lot of lawyers will kill deals because they get into pissing matches with other lawyers. And it becomes personal for them, right? So, I mean, there have honestly been transactions where, it's just you can see that the aggression or the tension is high and someone's just got to take the higher ground. Right. And, you got to make sure your lawyer understands that it's not about him, it's about you.
And hold on, and you want to make sure that lawyer that you hire is willing to share the emails with you. So if you ask to be copied on certain things, or if there is an issue and you say, hey, could you forward me that email where you had this conversation with the other attorney? If they're not willing to share stuff like that with you, to me, it means that they're hiding something. Mm-hmm. And that would be a red flag.
So if you don't live in a state that has an attorney review, or if you live in a section of a state that doesn't have an attorney review, what should you do to protect yourself? What should you do as a real estate agent, as a buyer, as a seller? What should you do to protect yourself? Should you be hiring a lawyer? And would that make it so your deal is automatically killed if it's not normal?
So, great question. Just going back to one more point to what Eric said, something else I know Eric looks for in his lawyers is execution, right? And a lot of other people like Eric, larger clients, they're busy. They have their own things to do and their own agendas, and they don't like to have to check in and follow up with their lawyers on stuff. Like, even I miss stuff and Eric gets pissed off. You have to acknowledge it's reality. As a lawyer, you have to be willing to say, hey, you know what? All right, I missed it on this. I'm going to take care of it. We'll get it done. But it's also really important to look for an attorney who ultimately, once you give him that direction, he like Eric said, he goes and does it and he follows that direction without his own agenda and comes back to you with a completed task. This task is now completed. Thank you. And also, I think Eric didn't mention this, but I realized that it's important to Eric over time is you want your attorney to fight, right? Not just kind of lay down and give in or go the easiest route.
You agree to a strategy. So before this, you agree to disagree. So we could agree to disagree, and then he's going to follow the strategy that I asked for, even though he doesn't think it's in my best interest. That's what you want to be able to do. But that comes with knowledge, because I have worked with attorneys that are like, okay, well, I don't agree with this, so I'm going to send you an email that says, I don't agree with this. If we proceed in this manner, it's at your own risk. To me, that's overkill because you build that relationship. I understand why you would want to do that, but
I would do that. I'd be like, you don't want to listen to my professional opinions, so let me cover my own.
But once you get to a certain level of business with certain clients, like it's almost like insulting.
Yeah.
When the attorney does that. But again, there's all different levels out there for all different people, so it really depends on where you are with it.
Yeah, no, like a better email in that scenario it's CYA email would be like, hi, as you know, we've discussed numerous options, and this is the option you wish to proceed with, and this is how we're going to execute it.
Got it.
Right? That's a much easier way to just say, okay, well, this is what you ultimately decided. But to your point, it depends on the state you live in, and whatever state you live in, before you do any type of a deal, find an attorney, and say, hey, I'm going to do this deal. What should I do, or how should I handle it?
So educate yourself in the traditions of that area.
Exactly.
And if you are using a broker in that area, that broker should be able to tell you the traditions.
I would stay away from people who say you don't need one. Also, I know for a fact that there's no lawyer in Florida review at all, and they're big on not doing it. There are exceptions to everything. But
in Florida, even, you would have a lawyer in the background just making sure you did everything you were supposed to do, correct?
You could. So you could pretend
you
could pretend that you don't have a lawyer just for the transaction part, but you could still be bringing everything back to your lawyer, having him review it before you sign something. So there's ways to do it to protect the deal, because again, if you're in a seller's market and you're trying to buy something or you're trying to represent someone to buy something, you want to minimize the obstacles. So you can have those obstacles minimized by doing them behind the scenes and still get the same result.
Exactly.
Well, sort of, we're going to start wrapping up here.
One other question.
Yep. So Ryan wants to know, what book would you recommend for real estate agents? What is the best book that you've read for real estate agents?
So I have one.
You go first.
Mine is not really for real estate agents. Mine is more for real estate in general. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That was actually the first book that I read. And what that did is it taught me really about money and about what the difference between an asset and a liability is. So everybody owns a house. And the question is your house an asset or a liability? So Noelle, is your house an asset or a liability?
Well, the house that I was going to get would have been a liability, but it's...
Okay, and you already know the answer.
So what's the answer? Wait, no, I don't know the answer. What's the answer?
So you have a house now that you own.
Okay.
You already bought it. Is it an asset or a liability?
It's an asset.
Okay.
It's a liability. He's shaking his head. I'm going to go with him.
You already answered. So an asset brings you money. A liability costs you money. Okay? So yes, that house that you're living in, you bought it for $100,000 and it's now worth $600,000. So you have $500,000 of equity. That's costing you money every month. It's not $500,000 that's in the stock market that's bringing you dividends. It's a house that's actually costing
Wait a minute, but what about people who bought their houses 10 years ago for like $300,000 and now in this market are selling it for $1 million?
We're not talking about an actual transaction. This is just specifically about understanding what a piece of real estate is. So it's something that you're living in, it's costing you money, you have to pay taxes, you have to take money out of your pocket to pay for it. That's really a liability. So an asset would be something that's bringing you money. So if you bought that house and you were renting it and you were getting money every month and your bank account was growing from that money, that would be an asset. So this book taught me that, amongst other things. So it really gives you a good foundation and it helps you explain things to people, if you're in that real estate world where you're becoming a real estate agent and you need to be able to show clients that you're educated, that's a great way to start.
Okay.
I don't know, honestly. So, look, I love to read, but I don't really read how-to books. I personally like to read books about, like one of my favorite books is a very short, easy read. It's called The Conquest of Gaul. And it is actually the memoirs of Julius Caesar that they took after his passing, they say, and they wrote it out. The last chapter was apparently written by one of his generals at the end, but it is his notes on his mentality and his thought process when he was taking over, what at the time was, Germany, Britain, and that whole area. Or I like to read books by Niccolo Machiavelli. I like to read books with people who are telling you their thoughts after their accomplishments, because just by understanding how they think, right? It's not what they did, it's how they think. You can apply that to other things in life. To me, the best book to read on real estate wouldn't be a book on real estate. It would be go to your community college, pay $400 or $500 and take an economics class. Because at the end of the day, if you take away the genre and you just look at numbers, you have to understand numbers. Yeah. And there's addition, subtraction, and what you end up with. So you could read a book on real estate, but all they're going to explain to you is how math applies to a building. If you understand how math applies, you can apply it to everything. That would, and actually a book I loved that wasn't anything like that, I picked it up at the airport. And I think it was, it's called The Key to Happiness. Really, really interesting book.
I see that work too.
I was really chill. I read 3 chapters of it, and then I just didn't have time to find the key to happiness. I went back to being a miserable lawyer buying real estate.
So that's interesting, your point where he was talking about getting a perspective from successful people. So there's different books for different reasons. So, asking what's a great book for real estate, it's if you're looking for a book to help you sell real estate, that's one type of book. If you're looking for a book to help you in investing, that's another type of book. One of the things that I've learned over the years is, and I always screw up the word psychiatry or psychology, whatever, but it's all in here, it's in your mind. You have to learn how to read people. And any book that helps you learn how to read people is going to give you an edge on everybody else. Most people don't take the time to do it. And what I've learned is, real estate isn't really about real estate. It's about people. It's about people. It's about understanding what they need. It's about understanding what they want. And it's about understanding what they will do. And then it's about understanding how to make you the caveat to whatever those things are. And once you learn that, that's really the secret to success. And that's going to make you a winner.
Well, I think on that note, we're going to come to an end. And thank you guys. I love this intimate conversation. We will be back next week, same time, same place. And thank you for joining us on the remix.
Can we take a quick poll before we wrap up?
Sure.
I'm just wondering. Yeah. So we've had a couple opportunities to talk to everybody watching this podcast now.
Okay.
If we could take a quick poll about anyone who's watching this, if they've done a transaction since they started watching us to now, whether they have thought or implemented any of the things that we've talked about into their decision making.
And when you mean transaction, just be anything that you've applied this to life in. So it doesn't have to be a transaction. It could be any type of decision or
have you guys listened to us at all? Have you applied anything that we've done?
Yeah, anyone? Something someone said pop in your mind.
We'd love to hear about it. We'd love you to give us feedback.
So let us know, and then the next episode we'll come on and we'll let you know how people implemented some of the stuff that we did, and also let us know what you want to hear about. Feel free, let us know what you want to hear about. Yep, podcast is every Thursday. So let us know what you want to hear about, and we will be happy to talk about it and find people who know a lot about it. All right?
And remember, if you visualize it, you can own it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.